on angels, I have to admit I was picturing, the classics, fluffy wings, harps, the whole bit.
Right, like a Renaissance painting.
Exactly. Not exactly where we ended up, huh?
Not quite. What we're diving into here, what you've shared, it's way more, well, unsettling. The possibility of astral parasites. And those might not sound like your typical angel, but these are beings that could be mimicking spiritual guides. Even something like angels to get what they need.
Okay, so hold on. Astral. What was it again?
Astral parasites. It's wild stuff. And the need these things have. Let's just say it gets kind of creepy.
Okay, you got to give me a little more to work with than that. You said they feed.
They feed on us. This is straight from the source material you sent. And it describes them as, quote, energy vampires. And their fuel, it's those lower vibrational states.
Lower vibration. So we're talking like bad vibes, but in a literal sense.
Pretty much. Think of emotions. Emotions most of us would rather avoid, like deep-seated fear, self-doubt, that nagging voice that tells you you're not good enough, or even like burning resentment, the kind you try to bury deep down. That's their feast.
Okay, so not exactly the kind of energy exchange you want happening when you're trying to meditate or connect with, the higher realms.
It does make you reconsider that whole opening yourself up thing, doesn't it? Like maybe a little more caution is needed than we might think. Actually, several sources you sent, they use real-world parasites as a good way to picture this whole thing.
Okay, I'm picturing like a tick, just happily gorging itself. But in a spiritual sense.
That's it. Just like a tick needs a host to survive. These astral parasites, if they're real, they've got to draw energy from somewhere, right? And according to what you've been reading, that somewhere is us. Our emotional energy.
Okay, see, this is where it starts to feel like one of those it's only a matter of time horror movies. Because if these things, if they're drawn to us when we're feeling our worst, isn't that usually when people are most likely to seek out guidance, to reach out to something beyond themselves?
And that's such a key point. Yeah. Especially, this is where it gets really interesting. When you consider the idea of a verbal contract, that's straight from what you sent over. It argues that, think about it, when we call out for help to angels, to spirit guides, to anything, really are we, without realizing it, giving something permission to enter?
Wait, so you're saying even if you're trying to be positive, you're looking for guidance, you're calling out for help, that act alone could leave you open?
That's the unsettling idea these sources are presenting. And it gets weirder because they don't stay in just one form. This isn't like, a spirit with one true face. These things, they can shapeshift.
Wait, shapeshift? Like they literally appear how we expect them to. That's crazy.
It really is something. The idea is they tap into, I don't know how else to say it, but our baggage, our beliefs, our visual expectations. Like if you believe angels have golden halos and feathered wings, boom, that's what you might see.
So you're saying all those classic angel depictions, maybe they weren't divinely inspired. Maybe something else was influencing the artist.
It's a thought, isn't it? And speaking of influences, we got to talk about something you said that really stood out to me. The Silva method. Now, for anyone listening who hasn't heard of this, it's not some obscure thing. This is a real technique. People practice it, and it's all about connecting with spiritual guides. But here's the thing. The source material hints that even this could have a dark side.
So even if it's established, it's a method, there's still a risk.
That's what's so fascinating about this, because it comes back to discernment, right? The source points out that even people with experience, like folks who are used to shifting their awareness, exploring different states of consciousness, they've reported running into these deceptive entities. And not just them. We're talking channelers, remote viewers, people who, this is their whole thing. They still get tricked.
So it's like even the pros aren't always sure who they're dealing with. Man, that is wild. It's almost like we're wired to think, spiritual automatically equals good, right? Like there can't be any danger in something that's supposed to be about, connecting with a higher power or whatever.
It's easy to fall into that trap, for sure. And look, it's not about assuming the worst is always lurking around the corner. But I do think you've hit on something important, that healthy skepticism we use in other areas of life. Like we wouldn't, just hand over our credit card info to any random website.
Right. Got to check for the security lock, make sure it's legit.
Exactly. So it's like, why wouldn't we bring that same critical thinking to our spiritual explorations? We're still exploring, right?
One of the sources you sent actually compares it to the internet. Like you wouldn't just click on any link, no clue where it leads. Oh, that's a good one. You click first, regret it later, especially if you're not running a good ad blocker.
There you go. It's about being savvy. not just passive.
Hmm.
And that goes double when we're talking about meditation, which, I mean, it's huge right now, and for good reason. A lot of people find it beneficial. But, and this is where your research gets really interesting, there's a bit of a paradox when it comes to meditation and these astral parasites.
A paradox. How so?
Well, on the one hand, you've got meditation being this practice for, finding peace,
Right.
stillness, connecting with something greater. But some of these sources, they suggest that same practice could actually make us more susceptible to these energy vampires we've been talking about.
Wait, really? I'm not going to lie, that's a little freaky to think about. It's like you're trying to create this calm space within yourself, and suddenly you've left the door wide open for something to just waltz right in.
That's a great way to put it, because it's not that meditation is inherently bad, right? It's more like, how do I put this? Okay, imagine you've got a radio, yeah.
Yeah.
But instead of tuning into like your favorite music station, meditation allows you to pick up on these subtler frequencies, stuff that was always there, but you just weren't aware of it before.
Okay, so you're saying we're messing with frequencies we don't fully understand, and not all frequencies are created equal. Some might be harmless, but others.
Exactly. One expert in the research compares it to walking through a forest. If you're totally oblivious, you might wander right into, a thorny bush or who knows what. But with awareness, with a healthy sense of caution, you can navigate those woods more safely. Meditation could be like putting on those metaphorical hiking boots and bringing a map,
Okay, that makes sense. So in this scenario, knowledge is power. And I'm not going to lie, it's a lot to process. I mean, how do you even sort through all this? We're talking about things most people can't see, can't touch, can't even prove exist. How do you know what's real, what's not, and most importantly, who or what to trust?
It can feel overwhelming, for sure. And I think that's where this empowering message in your research really comes in. Because across the board, these sources, they emphasize that we are not powerless in this. We have choice, we have agency, and we get to choose how we're going to interact with these energies, even if we don't fully understand them.
So it's not just about being, like a cosmic sitting duck, hoping for the best, just accepting whatever or whoever shows up.
Not at all. It's about setting boundaries, about not being afraid to question. And I love this part. Several sources actually use the word confront. Like, don't be afraid to confront an entity if something feels off.
Wait, hold on. Confront. Like straight up, not in my house kind of confrontation.
We got it. One source even suggests, and this is wild, demanding they reveal their true form.
Okay, now I'm picturing someone, deep in meditation, eyes closed, and suddenly they're like, "Excuse me, Mr. Spirit Guide, do you mind showing us what's under the hood?"
It's a funny visual, right? But the logic behind it is really interesting. Because if these beings are parasitic, if they're feeding off of our energy, our lower emotions, then they need us to be in that passive state. They need us to buy into the illusion, to blindly trust.
So when we assert ourselves, when we demand transparency, we're essentially cutting off their food supply. It's like, sorry, we're closed, come back, never.
Exactly. It's not about aggression. It's about taking back your power. It's about saying, I see you, I'm aware of you, and I'm not just going to roll over and let you take what you want.
That is empowering. But realistically, how do you even know if it's working? I mean, we're talking about things beyond our normal senses, right? So how do you tell if you're, genuinely connecting with your spirit guide or something that's not so friendly?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's something one of your sources dives deep into. It suggests paying very close attention to how these encounters make you feel, not just in the moment, but afterward too.
Okay, so if your meditation leaves you feeling drained, full of self-doubt, that's probably not a good sign.
Could be a red flag for sure.
Yeah.
But, and this is important, I think even positive experiences warrant a closer look. It's like, do these experiences leave you feeling genuinely empowered, inspired? Or do they leave you feeling kind of dependent, like you need more and more external validation to feel good?
So it's not just about whether it feels good or bad in the moment, but what kind of effect does it have on you afterwards? Like if it's inspiring, empowering, okay, maybe that's one thing. But if it creates this kind of dependency, that's when you gotta really start paying attention.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
And it goes even deeper than that. Because one of the sources you sent, it gets into this really trippy idea. Basically, it suggests that these entities, if they're as cunning as some people think they are, They could be messing with our perceptions, our emotions, even within those positive experiences.
Hold on, so you're saying we could be having what we think is, I don't know, a profound spiritual experience. Like we're feeling this incredible peace or we're getting this amazing download of wisdom or whatever, but it's not real. It's all just a manipulation tactic.
It's a possibility these sources bring up. And it really makes you wonder about, free will, right? Like how much can we trust our own judgment when we're encountering something that might be, I don't know how else to put it, intentionally blurring the line.
It's like we're talking about cosmic con artists here.
In a way, yeah. And it makes you think, this whole time I've been picturing angels, right? But you know what else people report seeing during spiritual experiences? It's not just angels.
Yeah.
We're talking deities, past loved ones. What if, and I'm just throwing this out there, what if those aren't always what they seem either?
Okay, yeah, that is a whole other level. Because we're so conditioned to think, especially with like loved ones who've passed, that we're connecting with them, from a place of pure light and love. But what if, and I know this sounds dark, but what if there's something else motivating them,
It's definitely a lot to consider, and it's something those sources really encourage us to grapple with. Like moving beyond this black and white view of good entities versus bad entities, and understanding that anything that has its own agenda, its own needs, it's going to have an effect on us, whether we're aware of it or not.
Okay, so let's say someone's listening to this and they're trying to be open-minded, they're being cautious, they're paying attention to how they feel. What if something just feels off, like really off? Is there anything we can actually do about it?
And here's the empowering part, because we're not helpless. Even if we're dealing with, forces beyond our normal understanding, one of the most consistent pieces of advice I found in your research, and this might sound kind of strange, but it's about directly confronting any entity that feels suspicious or off in any way.
Wait, so we're talking like full-on The Exorcist style confrontation, holy water, the whole bit.
Well, maybe not quite that dramatic, but you're on the right track. It's about disrupting that air of, I don't know, mystery, illusion, whatever it is these beings are hiding behind. Remember how we were talking about them feeding off our passivity? Well, this is the opposite of that. This is about questioning, demanding they show their true nature.
So I'm picturing someone in the middle of meditation and suddenly they're like, hold on, spirit guide, not so fast. Who are you really? Show me what you got.
It's a funny visual, but that's essentially the idea. Because remember, according to this research, these beings, they thrive on our willingness to believe. So when we question that, when we demand transparency, it throws a wrench in their whole system.
And if they don't back down, or if things just start feeling even weirder, what then?
Every single source you sent agrees. Disengage. Get out of there. That might mean ending a meditation, leaving a place that suddenly feels, heavy or off, or even, and this might sound strange, but mentally putting up a shield around yourself, visualizing yourself surrounded by light, or whatever resonates with you.
So it's a trust your gut, but also have an escape plan kind of situation.
Exactly. It's discernment in action, being open to exploring the spiritual realms, but not at the expense of our own well-being, our own safety.
This has been, I'm not going to lie, a wild ride. We started with like fluffy wings and harps, and now we're talking about like psychic parasites and telling otherworldly beings to get lost.
And yet, isn't it all part of that same spectrum of exploration? The unknown is out there, and it's calling to us. But what you've uncovered with this research, which you've shared with us today, it reminds us that we don't have to go into that exploration blindly.
We get to choose how we show up. We get to ask questions, and we always have the right to say no. That's powerful stuff.
Absolutely. And the coolest thing is you send in this incredible research. You open up this whole new area of understanding for us, and I'm sure for everyone listening too.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here? What's the next step for someone who's hearing all this for the first time?
I think the most important thing is to, not be afraid to keep digging. Dive into those sources. See what resonates. See what doesn't sit right. Trust your intuition, but also stay curious. And remember, knowledge is power, even and maybe especially in the unseen realms.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So listeners, if this sparked your curiosity, don't stop here. Explore those sources, keep those questions coming, and who knows what other mysteries we'll uncover together. Until next time, happy and safe exploring.